So thank you so much for joining us today to talk to us and to an audience. हमारी audience is basically students across various universities across Pakistan, and I think for them the most relevant thing is the leaders like you who are actually helping change the the skill set here in Pakistan. So the topic that we invited you to come and talk about is skills for tomorrow.
Okay. All right.
Javed Sahab, so I just want to start by, mashallah, so you're the chairman of National Vocational and Technical Training Commission, but you started your career in the private sector, and that too as a corporate banker. So from the private sector now today in the public sector as the chairman of National Vocational and Technical Training Commission of Pakistan, tell us about yourself and what has that journey been like for you?
Okay, thank you very much, Zishan, and thank you for inviting me here to speak to you on this occasion. I'm very glad you did, and it's an honor. So I'd like to acknowledge it, and it's always fun to talk to young people. I don't know if I have much value to add, but I'll try my best. But Zishan, the journey, I graduated a long time back, and I don't want even to say when, as an engineer. But then, like a lot of engineers, did an MBA and went into investment banking. And I worked as an investment banker for a good 25 years. And having done that, decided that I really wanted to give something. I worked not only in Pakistan, but also in London, in Hong Kong. And so I had a bit of an international experience and came back to Pakistan and continued my banking career. But then at some point, decided enough of the corporate world, and I think I should do something to give back to society. And moreover, I think there's a stage of life when you have done enough for yourself, and you really want to do something which is much more interesting for the larger society. And this is not unique to me. This is something a lot of people go through, and it's good. I mean, at some point, you should leave the money making to the younger people, and do something to enable the younger people to make money and to contribute to society. So that was the thinking. I left investment banking around 2012, 13, and joined a company or a foundation where I was made CEO called Hunar Foundation. I helped start it up. Hunar Foundation is one of the pioneer skills training, vocational training, dedicated institutions in the country. They have about 7 institutes across the country. I was instrumental in setting up about 4 of them. I also brought about international standards in Hunar Foundation, and hope, I like to think, bring about some improvement within the Hunar Foundation and expand it. And the reason I decided Hunar Foundation, more so than many other social sector organization, NGOs, was simply it was an area I feel that has been neglected a lot. So I'll talk about that. Vocational training, skills training in Pakistan. It's a mainstay, it's the really backbone of any economy to grow. Really, there's a lot of focus in Pakistan on primary education. There's a lot of focus on even higher education, but there's very little focus on that segment of society, which is actually the majority, which really in other countries focus through skills training, vocational training. And I'll come to that and tell you how dire the situation is. I'll be mindful of the time, but I'll try and cover that. So that was it. I saw there's a huge gap, and moreover in this area, people of my background, say banking background, did not come in. It was really traditional sort of people who have been in vocational training. So it needed my I feel, my set of people to bring it to the public domain, and people should be aware of it. So I joined and was in Hunar Foundation till 2017. At that point, I decided to come to Islamabad. That was in Karachi, that where it was, and I came to Islamabad. In Islamabad, I was really leading a kind of semi-retirement life with my own stuff, and was. But then I was called in by the new government of PTI in 2018 to head a task force regarding vocational training and the state of vocational training or skills training in Pakistan. I use the word vocational and skills training interchangeably because, frankly speaking, they are interchangeable. So I headed that task force, and a lot of work had already been done by various people. The organization which I now currently am the chairman of, NAVTTC, had already done a lot of, but we put together a report, something like 100-page report, which is the first actually task force report that actually got notified in December 2018. And the findings were quite simply quite disturbing. And the fact of the matter, in Pakistan, let me give you some broad statistics. There are some 5 million people who turn 16 every year. They come into the job market effectively when they're turning 16. But, you know, of these, about 700 to 800,000 go into the university stream, either A-level, FSC, what have you. About another 300, 400,000 go into various tradings like ACA or other similar qualifications. So you have about 4 million left. And then you have, of those 4 million, about 1.5 million drop out or basically get absorbed in the system, either through getting married or going into the farming, agricultural sector. So you're left with another 2.5 million. And then there's a, so then you have a capacity in the institute's vocational training of no more than about 500,000. Formally about 400,000, but if you include informal, 500,000. So you basically have, for 2 million young people who are at the prime of their life, who can contribute, there's no facility or no capacity for training. And that is really very worrying. If you see countries like Japan, China, Germany, something like 40 to 50% of their populations get some kind of vocational stroke skills training. In countries like Switzerland, which is probably one of the highest per capita GDP countries in the world, only 25% go into universities initially. And 70 to 75% actually go into skills training, vocational training. Now it might be watchmaking, which is a very highly sophisticated skill. It could be jewelry, or it could be just dairy products, but they go into the skills training. And later on, they may go back to university and at the age of 30 get degrees and what have you. But for that early stage at 16, most people actually focus. And that is very important, because so there is across the globe now a focus on skills training. A majority of your investment should be towards skills, and there is obviously other people who should get university degrees, but there is in Pakistan a misunderstanding that everyone should become, either you become a graduate of some sort, whether a professional graduate or a liberal science or liberal arts graduate, or you become nothing. And that is a great misunderstanding. Young people all across the world actually do not necessarily enter university immediately. They actually get skills, and skills enables them to get employment. Once you have employment, you can always enhance those skills and qualifications to become a graduate. And that's, being a graduate is not the most important thing in life. I personally found out having the right skills is the most important thing. Now,
right.
So there's the journey. So in 2018, the government was very kind to ask me to head National Vocational Technical Training Commission, NAVTTC, and that is the apex body for skills training, technical skills training in Pakistan. Now, one of the things that has been in the past, and this is now we're getting to the heart of your discussion in Grassroots, and one of the focuses, one of the things was that in the past there has been various skills training modules and skills training initiatives by previous governments as well. So let's be honest, it's not only this government that has introduced the idea of skills scholarships and skills training, but in the past the skills training has almost exclusively focused on what is we call traditional skills like plumbing and carpentry and welding and things like that, or masonry. And that was what was seen as skills training or vocational training. And there is no harm in that, and those are very noble and important skills. And I can tell you, for instance, in welding, if you are a really good welder in the highest level, you can earn 7-8 lakhs a month. So welders can be highly remunerated, and it's a highly technical skill. Same with some of the carpet. So let's be very clear, those traditional skills now also can be very high end and highly technically oriented. A machinist nowadays uses a CNC machine, which requires a lot of computing. But what has happened, as you are specialists of, there is the digital world that has emerged, and there are technologies. What is the specific word? The space digital industry that is happening, and that is probably one of the fastest growing industries in the world, and which is making room for a lot of employment. Obviously, we know of names like Google and Facebook and yeah, the host of them. Where there's interesting. Many of these companies across the globe, they are not necessarily employing graduates. They are in US and other countries. They are employing people right out of school or high school and putting them in boot camps. And once you qualify, and probably at that time, if I remember, I was also slightly brighter than I am today. At least my mind worked definitely faster. So you have incredibly sharp people who don't necessarily need to go to university, and they have directly the ability to apply themselves and do incredibly interesting work. And it's a range of things. Now, there's a big misunderstanding that you have to be mathematically savvy to take advantage. No, that's not the case. In the digital space, there's a whole range of skills. And this is something which I also had to learn. So it can be coding, which can be relatively more involved in terms of computing sciences and computing understanding. There can be things like data sciences, which in artificial intelligence you require. But there's also things like, if you have artistic skills, or if you have verbal skills, linguistic skills, it doesn't matter. From graphic artists so there's a whole range of array of possible skills that are required, and there are courses likewise. So one of the first things we decided, two things we decided. First, I have a clear view that as a government organization, we do not know all, and we certainly do not know best. There's out there a world where there are lots of things happening that we are not aware of, and we need to learn. So if we are going to have scholarship programs, we should not base it, as has been historically the case, where we said this year we will have 100,000 scholarship. In those, 5,000 will be for plumbing, for 10,000 will be for welding, 3,000. And this is because we have done surveys with industry. This is what our surveys tell us. And not only that, most importantly, we have capacity to train so many basket makers. And so we will, irrespective of whether there's demand or not, we will put in, because we need to, in the technical training institutes, we need to utilize that capacity. So whether the kids want to do it or not, we are going to put so much scholarship against that. I thought that was utterly ridiculous. As we all know, and Zishan Sahib, we have to respond to the needs of the market.
Absolutely.
there's another assumption we made at NAVTTC. Not only that we don't know everything, and in fact we take a view that we know very little.
Right.
And let's start with that very humble but probably accurate estimation. Uh, and we also assume that the existing capacity is not important. What is important is what do the young people want to train in? What skills do they want to acquire? What is their need? Because by and large, the young people are very, very sharp. I have two kids myself. They are very responsible. Contrary to popular belief, they want to acquire skills which will enable them to earn.
Right.
And they're very driven by, in fact, unlike when I was young, when there used to be a lot of socialists, the young kids today are very capitalist. And they want to, they are very focused on the market and then want to acquire skills which will enable them to earn money and be independent and enjoy the fruits of life. So
Right.
that is what we talk to the institutes. And the other thing we did, we included universities here and said, why don't you design courses? But there's one simple criteria for the courses you design, that it has to be such that once they're finished their training, they'll get 80% will almost immediately get employment, or either employment or be able to do their own businesses, or be freelancers,
Right.
or so there has to be some entrepreneurial. It should be such that at least 80% are economically engaged.
Right.
Now, that was the first criteria. The other thing, obviously, we wanted to see that the courses should be designed such that it should be certified. It should have a minimum standard. The people who are training have industry understanding. They are related to the industry. So that's what we did. And 50,000 scholarships were for the high tech, what we call high tech. And when in this high tech, let me be very clear, not all of it is related to digital technology. Even in makeup artists, you have very high end trades. So at the very high end, beautician is a very, very technical and very, very sophisticated level of training. But a large percentage of this high tech was really digital technology and the digital space that we focused on. I would say something like 80%. Now, here it was relatively new for us, and we started looking at things like, and to be honest, it's been a learning experience for me. So within artificial intelligence, there's, for instance, about 20 different things, from deep learning to coding to data input to, and each one has a different level of requirement. So Internet of Things, there's again a whole array. And what is interesting, a lot of people say, oh, the new world where there is industry 4.0, so many jobs will disappear. What they don't counter that with is that so many new jobs are appearing. And these are exciting jobs, which, young people do not need to have PhDs to do, but what they need to do is apply themselves and be very keen to work hard. So that is what we have been focusing on. And if you want, I can talk about, we initially, in the first phase of this, it was when we launched it in March 2020. No, it launched in February 2020 because it took time after the report to funding. The problem in government is that there's a whole process. The process is not that easy. You need to have budget allocation. After the budget allocation, you need to get the funding actually approved. And finally, you get the finances. But in the meanwhile, it gave us time to tie up with institutions. We had something like across the country, 1,700 institutions that we are working with. Many of them are universities, very high-end universities like UAT and IBA Sakkar and BUTEM in Balochistan, Peshawar University, some really, really high-class universities. And we also have vocational training institutes. Air University in Islamabad, uh, all of these very, very top class universities, as well as incredibly good institutes. And in the initial phase, we did about 40,000, and this ended in just in February, no, in March this year. And in this 40,000, I can tell you 80%, more than 80% have immediately got employment, or got some kind of entrepreneurship program that is going through. And you'll be surprised that some of the young people are earning as much as $3,000-4,000 per month without being graduates, or and this is just by acquiring these skills. Now that is on the higher side, but most of them are quite easily, once they have acquired these skills, earning 40,000-50,000 rupees. And that is a very satisfying, if you imagine the cost of these programs very often is around 75,000 rupees to a lakh rupees for 6 months. And if a young person can start earning 40,000-50,000 almost immediately, for society as a whole, there's immediate payback. And moreover, as much as payback, it is critically important that these bright young mind, enthusiastic, energetic people are applying themselves, and that is very satisfying.
So, Javed sir, in terms of the work that National Vocational Technical Training Commission is doing, and how does that sort of address the government narrative of Hunarmand Pakistan?
Well, Hunarmand Pakistan is this skill scholarship. We are the ones executing, which is part of Kamyab Jawan. This is the total number in this particular program. There's one scheme, and inshallah, hopefully it will continue, is 170,000 altogether. 100,000 is direct scholarships through traditional and high-tech skills, which we are executing and overseeing through institutes. So we give the money, the institutes actually execute it. Then there's 50,000, what they call RPL, recognition of prior learning. So you have people who are already skilled in certain technical skills or high-tech skills. We certify those young people because while they may have the qualifications or the understanding, the skills, they may not have any formal certification. So we want to make sure they get formal, because that once you have formal certification, your employment and your ability to earn increases. Then there's another 20,000 for apprenticeships. So that's how we get the 170. 50,000 are for very high-tech skills, 50,000 for traditional skills. Now, the government, I understand, is looking to expand this to take it, every year to do at least 200,000 so because this was a test, now we are going to, and by inshallah by 2023 we would want to do up to 500,000 young people in these things. This time now we will focus much more on the high-tech area, because that has proven to be very successful. We did it as an experiment, and that's going, hopefully we are going to see much more of that.
In terms of collaboration, so whilst we have NAVTTC reaching out to the universities or institutions here in Pakistan, is there also, from the perspective of certification, is there any affiliation being done with polytechnics or technical institutes abroad, overseas as well?
We have started that process. As part of Hunarmand, one of the key components was international linkages. So right. One of the things is to set up technical agreements or affiliations for local institutes or universities with international universities and tech. We have already done that with leading Finnish institute, which is the Culinary Institute in Finland, and it's the top, it's right. The leading global, and we've done that with a Lahore-based institute, and which is then going to be migrated to other institutes across Pakistan. And this is with the Finnish Technical Institute for Culinary Sciences, and we will now, it's being done with I forget the name, in Lahore, the Culinary Institute, and now
Right.
similarly we are doing with New Tech and another institute in terms of artificial intelligence. So there are a number of institutes that we are now, and similarly with university. New Tech is actually a university.
So how does this work? Is it a tripartite kind of an arrangement between NAVTTC, the local institute here in
Yes,
Pakistan, and
absolutely.
with the international one? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We
what
facilitate.
you facilitate? Okay.
We facilitate. We talk to the international organization. We bring them together. We want to make sure that it is of the right standard. We help if there's any funding required in upgradation of instrumentation equipment. So it's a slow process, but we are going to do at least 10 such global institutes with local institutes. And not only that,
Excellent.
one of the other things we are doing is our certification. We are trying to see that they get international accreditation, because that's also important. We are not only trying to bring out in international international certification in Pakistan. We want our certification to be internationally recognized.
Wow. So a lot of interesting things happening at NAVTTC, and also, the government sort of initiative of, and through NAVTTC from, progressing from just providing, traditional kind of skill development for the human capital to also leveraging technology to create this digital skills, savvy workforce. What would this do for people in the remote areas, and also especially for women, in terms of inclusion into the workforce and being able to earn?
Okay, I think that's an extremely important question, and a one that we really should have at top of our minds. And it should not be such that, oh, incidentally, what are we doing for the rural area and women? For a start, women at least, and I have to say, initially, all our courses, we want at least 30, or we try and ensure at least 30% are women. We would ideally want 50% in enrollments. So right. Wherever there is, we want 30% at least, and this is a demand that we make to the institute, that in any enrollment class, there has to be at least 30% women. Interestingly, in the high-tech area, there's been no shortage. For the last time we opened it for 20,000 spaces, we had 220,000 applications. I do not exaggerate. For 20,000 spaces, we had 200, and a large number of these were graduates who had graduated some time back but had not got employment. And I can tell you, immediately after completing the course, they got employment. We are a government organization, and I take to, and we don't like the word sifarish, and we do not care for it, and we do not entertain it, but it is somehow a validation of our courses that I've been getting sifarish for some of these training courses from very senior people. Please, isme dakhla karate. So but there are enough women applying, so we have not had a problem. In rural area, we have also tried to ensure that these courses are not only in the urban areas. I'll be very honest, there is a majority in urban areas, but for instance, we have made sure that it is there in Balochistan, it's there even in places like Turbat. We have involved Turbat University in this program. We have involved Chitral University. We have looked at Southern Punjab. And you'll be surprised, there are some very good institutes, not necessarily out completely in the sort of villages, but close enough in proximity for people from rural areas. And we are finding the rural area where there is certain degree of literacy are as enthusiastic and as capable of getting in. And if there is internet connectivity,
absolutely, yeah,
that is the key thing.
Absolutely.
So with regard, and many of these young people, we are finding are getting trained, and they're immediately being able to apply themselves so long as there's internet connectivity. And this is something which you should demand from the government, that I think it should be as much as a fundamental right as the right to pathways, roads, or anything. You know, it's as important as water, I think, in the modern day. And we find in rural areas or semi-rural areas, we find that young people are able and in fact more keen to learn than even in urban areas.
So Javed sir, if we look at from the national level, through this, through technology, being able to access the remote areas, being able to enable, the, the female population who primarily has had very limited work opportunities and the ability to earn, if they're also brought into this, into the work stream, and where they could be sitting wherever they are, in any part of Pakistan, as long as they have internet connectivity, as long as they have access to a computer, and as long as they have a digital skill, they could be very well sitting and working from wherever and earning in hard currencies, by working for clients overseas through freelance work. So I'm just thinking in terms of the contribution to the country in terms of foreign exchange remittances coming in through this local. एक तो ना कि आप अगर Pakistan, we listen to Imran Khan and he says that our biggest asset for Pakistan is our foreign overseas Pakistanis, and the question really is why so? And it's because the overseas Pakistanis have parents, have families, have siblings back home, and they send money from overseas to Pakistan, and that really helps a country with the foreign exchange reserves. But what I'm sort of putting together from what you just said, that if through digital skills we have a local population, and especially the local population residing in the remote areas and the female population, if they're able to earn a living by working from wherever they are through freelance work, but and for clients overseas and be earning money, that money in the shape of dollars will be coming back to the country. So that itself is like kind of a bit mind-boggling how quickly things can.
Zishan, you make a very the world has changed dramatically. Location is not in the same way important as it was before. Your COVID, if there's been one good thing with COVID, while it has restricted travel, it has actually also reduced distances in a dramatic way. So 2 years back, we would not be having such a discussion, because you would have asked me to come to physically somewhere and present myself rather than be talking on this technology. So really,
you in Islamabad, I'm in Karachi, and our viewers are across Pakistan watching this event.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact of the matter now, recently there's been Amazon that has opened up for sales. Now, what people seem to forget that, look, right now it will take time for Pakistani exports to increase on Amazon platform, and it will be, inshallah, it will develop and it will be great, and we will hopefully hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, will happen through Amazon. But what there is already a big possibility, and some young people are already exploring it, is that you can act as a salesman between countries, as an intermediary. So you can buy stuff in China and sell to the United States. You do not need to be necessarily based in China to do so. And that is something which is very valuable. Now, you don't need to be a salesperson. The salesperson also requires someone to process the ledger. They require some digital artwork for advertisement. So that that marketing space is creating its own job opportunities. Not, and if you imagine, China has already gone up the pay scale. So they want, and their English probably is not as strong as many of those in Pakistan, even from rural area. So there's a job creation of various forms. Not all of it is necessarily salesmanship. Some of it is just digital marketing, the ability to create ledgers or create artwork. I don't know if you saw a very touching video that we presented of someone who suffers from, but actually quite inspiring, not touching, inspiring video of a young person who suffers from muscular dystrophy. And he has, again, through our Hunarmand Pakistan Skills for All training, he's now got the skills and he's doing digital artwork, advertisement work for international companies. And he's earning a fair amount. I'm not going to say exactly how much, but really much more than many of your people who work in banks, even in Pakistan. And he's sitting at home. So it's not only women, it's also the very often the disabled community, or sorry, don't want people who have certain physical challenges. Suddenly we have a host of opportunities, and I'm very glad you're having discussions like this, because we need to make the young people aware that there's not only one route to getting earning. There's a whole range of things, and do not let your parents depress you that if you don't go into engineering or medicine, the world is lost, because it isn't. There are many other exciting things to do in life.
It's a new world now. It's an absolute new world.
It's a new world, and it's an exciting world. And if you're willing to get up in the morning and work hard, or as it has time differences, sometimes we get up in the evening and work hard. There is huge earning opportunities. There's huge opportunities to learn. There's huge opportunities to make friends across the world through your business contacts and through your work. So it's not only all about earning, it's about the exposure you get to different client requirements, different people. Those are the important things. And as you build on it, you suddenly are getting exposed to a whole new world out there. And that is what the real excitement is. And I think, I wish I could be 22 years old now, because it'd be remarkably exciting times.
So Syed, Javed, Hassan, thank you so much for sharing with us insights about how things are getting transformed across the world, but more so here in Pakistan, and how the workforce is going to be very different now and going forward as what it has been in the past. And it's institutions like yours which really help shape the human capital development of Pakistan. And we really wish you all the success. We wish your institution all the success, because in your and NAVTTC's success is our success as a nation. So I really, on the bottom of my heart, really would like to thank you for taking the time and for connecting with us and with the audience. And I think the key takeaway for our students of universities who are watching this live stream right now is think afresh, think anew, think where your future is taking you, rather than look at how things have been. Things are going to be very, very interesting. They're going to be very different. They're going to be a lot more exciting than it has been in the past. So Javed Saab, thank you so much for joining with us.
Thank you, Zishan, for having me on. It's been great fun.
Thank you so much. God bless.